Somewhere in your house right now, there's probably a pair of glasses that cost you $200, $300, maybe $500. Maybe they have a Ray-Ban logo stamped on the arm. Maybe they say Oakley, Prada, Chanel, or Armani. And you paid a massive premium because you figured a designer fashion house in Milan or Paris had a team of master artisans handcrafting your frames. Here's the part almost nobody tells you. That pair of glasses costs somewhere between $5 and $8 to actually make. Not $5 to $8 in raw materials, plus labor, plus shipping, plus a reasonable margin. $5 to $8, full stop, completely finished, out the factory door. The reason you paid 40 times that amount has almost nothing to do with quality, craftsmanship, or the brand name stitched onto the frame. It has to do with the fact that one single conglomerate, headquartered in Paris and Milan, controls almost every single step of the global eyewear industry at once. The design, the manufacturing, the brand licensing, the retail store you bought it in, and in most cases, even the vision insurance plan that decided how much of it you had to pay out of your own pocket. That company is called EssilorLuxottica. Most people have never heard the name, but if you wear glasses, you have almost certainly handed them your money. Right now, 7,000 miles away, in a small Chinese city most Westerners could not point to on a map, something is happening that could break that grip for good. A place that manufactures roughly 1 out of every 2 optical lenses on Earth. A place where you can walk into a storefront, get a full prescription pair of custom glasses, and walk out having spent less than the cost of a movie ticket. This is the story of how one company built a $165 billion monopoly over a piece of curved plastic and 2 hinges, and how a single manufacturing hub the size of a mid-sized American suburb is quietly taking it apart, one $3 pair of glasses at a time. Let's start with a simple mental exercise. Think of every major eyewear brand you can name off the top of your head. Ray-Ban, Oakley, Persol, Oliver Peoples, Costa del Mar, Vogue Eyewear. Now think of the high-end designer names sitting in display cases at your local mall. Prada, Chanel, Giorgio Armani, Burberry, Dolce & Gabbana, Versace, Tiffany, Michael Kors, Coach, Ralph Lauren, Valentino, Tory Burch, and even Supreme. Here is the reality. Every single one of those names funnels back to the exact same corporate balance sheet. Some of them EssilorLuxottica owns outright. Others it does not own, but it holds exclusive global licenses to design, manufacture, and distribute eyewear under that designer label. Which means the Prada frames sitting in a glass case at an upscale optical shop were never designed by anyone in an Italian fashion house. They were never hand-assembled in a boutique workshop. They came off the exact same automated production lines, using the exact same hinges, the exact same nose pads, and often the exact same base frame molds as the standard Ray-Bans sitting 2 shelves over. Now think about where you actually go in the United States to buy those glasses. LensCrafters, Sunglass Hut, Pearl Vision, Target Optical, Sears Optical, Glasses.com. All EssilorLuxottica. And if you checked your vision insurance coverage before making that purchase, there is a very high probability your provider was EyeMed, the second largest vision insurance network in the United States, also owned outright by EssilorLuxottica. Think about what that actually means. The entity that designed your glasses, the entity that manufactured your glasses, the retail chain that sold you your glasses, and the insurance provider that dictated how much copay you owed out of pocket. All 4 links in that commercial supply chain belong to a single parent company. This is not an internet conspiracy theory. This is publicly available corporate data sitting right inside EssilorLuxottica's annual financial filings. The company generates over 28 billion euros in annual revenue, north of 30 billion US dollars, powered by over 200,000 employees across 600 factories, 128 distribution centers, and nearly 18,000 retail locations across 150 countries. Its total enterprise footprint across manufacturing, retail real estate, and insurance networks values the ecosystem it commands at well over $160 billion. To be precise, this is not a monopoly in the strict legal sense that would trigger an immediate federal antitrust breakup tomorrow. Competitors exist, Costco Optical exists, Walmart Vision Centers exist, independent neighborhood optometrists exist. Estimated market share figures for EssilorLuxottica's hold on the US market range from as low as 10% to as high as 80%, depending entirely on how market boundaries are drawn and whether you are calculating frames, raw lenses, retail storefronts, or insurance plans separately. That massive variance alone highlights the core issue. This company is so deeply vertically integrated across every layer of the industry that traditional market analysts cannot even agree on a single standard metric to capture its actual reach. Regardless of the specific percentage, if you buy a pair of brand-name glasses anywhere in the Western world, a significant portion of that transaction flows right back to EssilorLuxottica. It is not just participating in the market, it owns the board, the dice, the properties, and the bank. To understand how a single entity captured an industry built around basic magnifying lenses and plastic frames, you have to go back 60 years to northern Italy. The story begins with Leonardo Del Vecchio. Born in Milan in 1935, the youngest of 5 children, Del Vecchio spent part of his childhood in an orphanage because his widowed mother could not afford to feed the family. He started his working life as a young apprentice in a factory producing tools and metal molds for eyeglass parts. By the mid-1960s, he moved to Agordo, a small town in the Italian Alps, and launched his own manufacturing shop. He named it Luxottica. For its first decade, Luxottica operated like most contract manufacturers. It produced metal parts and finished frames for third-party brands. But Del Vecchio made a critical strategic realization that transformed the consumer landscape. He recognized that low-margin contract manufacturing was a race to the bottom, while controlling consumer retail was where real pricing power existed. So Luxottica began buying its way directly into distribution. Through the late 1990s and early 2000s, Luxottica executed an aggressive acquisition strategy. In 1999, it acquired Ray-Ban from Bausch & Lomb. At the time, Ray-Ban was struggling with declining sales and diluted brand perception. Luxottica pulled Ray-Ban off discount store racks, restricted supply, rebranded it as premium, and turned it into a high-margin global powerhouse. Next, Luxottica bought major retail chains, LensCrafters, Sunglass Hut, and Pearl Vision. When Oakley resisted acquisition in the mid-2000s, Luxottica simply dropped Oakley products from its retail stores nationwide, causing Oakley's stock price to plunge and forcing Oakley's board into accepting a takeover. Luxottica then acquired boutique brands like Persol and Oliver Peoples, while locking up exclusive, multi-decade licensing agreements with world-famous fashion houses. Even if a luxury brand owned its fashion line, its lucrative eyewear business was entirely manufactured and distributed through Luxottica's ecosystem. Then came 2018. Luxottica executed a mega merger with Essilor, the French optics giant that dominated global prescription lens manufacturing. Essilor owned the foundational patents and production lines for everything from anti-reflective lens coatings and high-index progressive lenses to the light-reactive transitions brand. When Luxottica and Essilor combined, they created EssilorLuxottica. Suddenly, a single corporate entity designed the frame, engineered the prescription lens, assembled the product, sold it inside its own retail chain, and processed the insurance transaction through its own coverage network. In economics, this is extreme vertical integration. A standard independent eyewear startup has to purchase lenses from a supplier, buy frames from a factory, negotiate shelf space with a retailer, and pay fees to join insurance networks, taking a margin haircut at every step. EssilorLuxottica does not negotiate with external parties at any step. It absorbs every layer of profit internally. This structural dominance explains why pricing feels disconnected from reality. A pair of designer sunglasses retailing for $250 does not cost $250 because of advanced technology. It costs $250 because the company selling it owns every alternative channel and faces no market pressure to drop the price. Industry insiders and former optical supply chain executives confirm that a standard mass-produced plastic or acetate frame costs between $5 and $8 to manufacture out the factory door. For a complete pair of basic prescription glasses, frame and lenses combined, the actual manufacturing cost often represents under 5% of the final price tag charged at a traditional mall store. If you spend $200 on a base-level prescription pair, roughly $10 went toward physical manufacturing. To be fair, that $5 to $8 baseline is raw manufacturing cost. It does not factor in corporate research, product design, global marketing campaigns, high street real estate leases, optometry staff payroll, or international logistics operations. Those are real operational overhead expenses. However, even after factoring in corporate overhead and healthy profit margins, the math reveals extraordinary markups. The gap between an $8 production cost and a $250 retail price represents a markup of 20 to 40 times cost. By comparison, standard grocery stores operate on single-digit profit margins. Luxury leather goods and Swiss watches, famous for steep markups, rarely exceed 10 to 15 times manufacturing cost at the entry level. Eyewear has operated on pricing dynamics closer to stadiums and session sales, despite selling a crucial medical device required by nearly 40% of the global population. This model persisted for decades because consumer buying habits in eyewear are unique. People do not shop for glasses the way they shop for smartphones or shoes. You take an eye exam, receive a prescription, walk directly to the optical display frames on the wall, and hand over your vision insurance card. Insurance plans like iMed offer structured discounts that make a $250 frame feel like a deal after a $100 allowance, blinding consumers to the underlying markup. The entire ecosystem was engineered to prevent buyers from asking what the product actually cost to produce. That model remained unchallenged until a manufacturing city in eastern China changed the underlying economics. The city is Danyang, located in Jiangsu province, with a population under 1 million. Within the global optical industry, Danyang is known as the eyewear capital of the world. Danyang produces over 400 million spectacle lenses every single year. Data from global trade directories and industrial manufacturing metrics confirm that Danyang accounts for 70 to 80% of China's lens output and approximately 50% of total global lens production. 1 out of every 2 people on Earth wearing glasses is using lenses manufactured in this single city. Danyang hosts over 1,600 eyewear-related enterprises, spanning chemical raw material processing, precision lens coating, frame stamping, and international export logistics. Over 50,000 residents work directly in the optical trade. Beyond lenses, the city produces over 100 million frames annually, generating $2 to $3 billion in physical output. Danyang's optical sector began in the 1960s when relocated urban workers established makeshift optical workshops. For decades, it remained a low-tech supplier of basic glass lenses. The pivot occurred in the late 1990s and 2000s when local manufacturers shifted focus from cheap labor to chemical engineering. Historically, high-grade resin lenses, the lightweight polymer plastic that replaced heavy optical glass, were dominated by foreign patent holders, forcing Chinese factories to import costly chemical resins. Local Danyang firms partnered with regional universities to reverse engineer and synthesize advanced optical resin formulas locally. By 2007, this domestic breakthrough slashed raw resin material costs by nearly 2/3, allowing Danyang to scale into a global manufacturing center. Danyang's facilities have continued upgrading into advanced lithography-based lens surfacing, precision coating, and automated digital surfacing lines managed by materials scientists and optical engineers. Danyang is not a low-grade assembly town. It is a specialized industrial cluster built over 60 years, functioning similarly to Shenzhen in consumer electronics or Detroit during the automotive boom. Outside the Danyang high-speed rail station sits China Danyang Glasses City, a massive multi-story optical trading complex where international sourcing agents, independent store owners, and bulk buyers select frames and lenses directly from factory outlets. Danyang exports hundreds of millions of dollars in optical products annually across North America, Europe, and Asia. This infrastructure raises an obvious question. If half the world's lenses are produced in a mega cluster optimized for low-cost, high-precision production, why do designer frames in Western retail stores still cost hundreds of dollars? Because for decades, high-efficiency manufacturing savings were never passed on to retail buyers. Danyang's factory output was absorbed by international supply chains, including major corporate conglomerates, who bought components for single-digit dollars and sold them at full Western retail markups, retaining the difference as gross margin. Cheap global production only lowers consumer prices when direct distribution bypasses traditional gatekeepers. That direct-to-consumer disruption finally arrived through e-commerce challengers. The first major wave came in 2010 with Warby Parker. Founded by 4 graduate students frustrated by paying iPhone-level prices for simple prescription glasses, Warby Parker designed frames in-house, contracted directly with manufacturing plants, and sold directly to consumers online. By cutting out retail licensing and middleman markups, Warby Parker launched complete prescription glasses for $95, introducing home try-on kits and built-in charitable donation programs. Warby Parker grew into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, expanding from pure e-commerce into hundreds of physical locations across the US. However, direct-to-consumer online selling reached even lower price points through Zenni Optical. Founded earlier in 2003 by Tibor Lache and Julia Zhen, Zenni eliminated physical stores, licensing deals, and retail overhead entirely. Zenni's entry-level prescription frames start at $6.95. According to company executives, a complete prescription pair, frame, custom-cut lenses, and shipping can be manufactured and delivered for roughly $15 all in. Zenni operates custom automated production facilities, outputting tens of thousands of pairs daily, sourcing production directly through Asian optical hubs like Danyang. Having delivered over 50 million pairs of glasses worldwide, Zenni proved that basic prescription eyewear can be produced and sold profitably at a fraction of traditional retail costs. Comparing Warby Parker and Zenni highlights the shift in market dynamics. Warby Parker's average price sits significantly higher than Zenni's due to premium acetate materials, custom design work, and physical retail stores. But both models prove the core premise. Once middleman markups are stripped out, prescription glasses do not require a $250 price tag. Competitors like EyeBuyDirect and Glasses USA have expanded this market, leveraging direct access to international manufacturing to offer low-cost alternatives. However, Framing this story as a simple narrative where low-cost manufacturing destroys an established monopoly ignores critical market realities. First, EssilorLuxottica relies heavily on Asian manufacturing facilities for its own production runs. Operating over 600 factories globally, the conglomerate already captures massive gross margins by producing in low-cost regions and selling through premium brand distribution. The challenge to traditional retail is not merely cheap factory access. It is the direct-to-consumer business model that bypasses brick-and-mortar retail real estate entirely. Second, EssilorLuxottica is aggressively shifting toward high-margin technology categories. Its partnership with Meta on Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses has established a dominant position in modern wearable tech, integrating cameras, directional speakers, and open-ear AI interaction into classic frame styles. Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses have sold millions of units worldwide, with production scaling toward 10 to 20 million units annually. While budget online sites capture price-sensitive buyers at the bottom of the market, EssilorLuxottica is building a dominant lead in high-margin smart eyewear, where budget disruptors currently do not compete. Third, physical retail provides tangible service advantages that online sellers struggle to match. Precise in-person frame fittings, manual bridge adjustments, optometry consultations, instant warranty exchanges, and the ability to try frames on before purchasing remain valuable to millions of consumers. Buyers with complex prescriptions, high cylinder corrections, or progressive focal needs often require professional, in-person optical fittings. This reality explains why Warby Parker built physical retail stores and why online budget brands continue experimenting with pop-up locations. Fourth, quality metrics across ultra-budget online eyewear can vary. While customer satisfaction for direct online sellers is generally strong, cheaper plastic polymers, lower-grade barrel hinges, and self-measured pupil distance errors can lead to fit issues. A $7 frame and a high-end frame are not always identical in durability or finishing, even if structural differences rarely justify a 40-fold retail price markup. Ultimately, the global eyewear market has shifted from an opaque ecosystem, controlled by a single dominant distribution pipeline, into a stratified marketplace with genuine consumer choice. If you need a low-cost backup pair, kids' frames, or basic prescription glasses, direct-to-consumer online sellers leveraging global hubs like Danyang offer reliable products at a fraction of historic prices. If you want mid-tier styling with physical store support, direct brands offer options under $100. And if you prioritize designer fashion labels, professional optometry fittings, or integrated AI smart features, traditional retail continues to serve that market. The key structural shift is transparency. The $5 to $8 manufacturing baseline sits underneath almost every tier of the industry. Consumers now understand what they are paying for, whether it is brand equity, physical retail convenience, smart technology, or simply the ability to see clearly. For decades, an international conglomerate built an empire because consumers never questioned the cost structure behind two pieces of plastic and curved glass. Thanks to direct-to-consumer logistics and global manufacturing transparency, that illusion is gone for good. If this complete breakdown gave you a fresh perspective on the true economics behind your glasses, hit the like button and subscribe for deep dive investigations into global supply chains and hidden industry markups. Now I want to hear from you. Knowing the true manufacturing costs, will you switch to direct-to-consumer online brands for your next prescription? Or is in-person retail service and brand name styling still worth the extra cost to you? Sound off in the comments below.